My girlfriend helped her ex move into our house without my permission. So I left and cut her off. I'm 31 and my girlfriend Jenny's 29. We've been together for 2 years and it was getting pretty serious. I'd say things were good. At least I thought they were. I knew Jenny had some quirks and a history of being close with her exes. She'd always tell me they're just part of my past. Nothing more. And I tried to respect that. I'm not the kind of guy who tells his girlfriend who she can and can't be friends with. But there was one ex, Mike, who'd come up a little too often. They dated for a couple of years, even lived together. And yeah, it made me uneasy sometimes, but I brushed it off. I met him once at this party Jenny threw. She introduced him as an old friend, but it was obvious to everyone there who he was. Her ex, the guy she once shared a life with. He was in a band and seemed like he hadn't really moved forward in life while Jenny had. I didn't think too much of him back then. But things started getting weird recently, especially when he showed up unannounced at our place for the first time. It was a Sunday. I'd gone out for a jog, came back, and there he was leaning against the door, smoking. He looked completely at home, like he'd just walked out of our kitchen. Jenny swooped in to introduce him, brushing it off with, "Oh, you just stopped by? He's having a rough time." It felt weird, but I didn't want to start something. I laughed it off, gave him a nod, and let it go. But after that, Mike started popping up more and more. Rough times became his new thing. He'd show up, looking like some lost puppy, just needing a friend. Jenny would make him coffee, sit with him in our kitchen, listening to him go on about how his band broke up, how he was behind on rent. He'd look over at me like I was intruding on his personal therapy session with Jenny. She'd pat his arm, telling him it'd be okay, like he was her responsibility. I didn't love it, but I tried to be understanding. That was until the night Jenny dropped the bomb on me. We were winding down, watching a movie, when her phone buzzed. I knew it was him from the way she looked at it. She sighed, said, "Sorry, I have to take this," and walked out of the room. She shut the door, but I could still hear bits of their conversation, her saying, "You'll figure it out," and his voice cracking. 20 minutes later, she came back, looking upset. "Mike lost his apartment," she said, sitting beside me. "He doesn't have anywhere to go." I already knew where this was headed. I was thinking, she started, not looking at me. He could stay here for a few weeks, just until he finds a place. I thought she had to be joking. "Jenny, he's your ex. Are you serious?" Her face twisted, frustrated. "He's got nowhere else to go. He's my friend. Why are you acting like this?" "Because it's our home. I don't want some guy you used to date living here." She stared at me, hurt. "Mike and I are just friends. I told you that from day one." "You're overreacting." This whole thing spiraled fast. Jenny tried to paint herself as this person who just had to help a friend, like she had no other choice. She threw in every excuse, saying I didn't understand her need to help people. I pointed out that this wasn't some regular friend. This was her ex who'd been showing up constantly, acting like our place was his second home. But she wouldn't listen, wouldn't back down. Then she hit me with, "Maybe you should take a few days to think about it," like I was the one being unreasonable. I needed to cool off. I packed a bag and went to crash at my buddy Tom's place, figuring some space would do us both good. But even there, I couldn't shake this weird feeling. Here, I was the one forced out of my own house, while her ex was what, taking up residence? Was I the crazy one here? The next morning, I came back ready to talk, hoping we could actually sort things out. But when I walked into the living room, I found Mike stretched out on our couch, holding my coffee mug like he'd been there for weeks. Jenny glanced at me, almost like she was daring me to say something. "So, when did this happen?" I asked, pointing to him on the couch. Jenny shrugged, as if it was no big deal. "Mike needed somewhere to crash last night. I figured you wouldn't mind." I could feel the anger rising. "You figured wrong," I said. "Jenny, this is our home, not a hotel for your exes. What exactly am I here for?" She crossed her arms, getting defensive. "It was just one night," she snapped. "Why are you being so insecure?" "Insecure?" "Jenny, this isn't about insecurity. This is about respect. Something you seem to have forgotten." Mike just sat there, watching us argue like it was a show, clearly amused by the whole thing. But Jenny still didn't let up. She took it even further, saying, "If you can't accept me helping people, maybe we're not right for each other." I didn't even recognize her at that point. I couldn't believe the girl I'd fallen in love with was choosing her exes, rough times, over our relationship. I walked over to the bedroom, grabbed my duffel bag, and started packing, ignoring Jenny's protest that I was overreacting. I didn't want to keep fighting about this. I needed out. As I was walking out, she grabbed my arm, her tone changing, suddenly softer. "Don't you love me?" she asked. "Don't you want to see if we can work this out?" I moved her hand off me. "I do love you," I said, "but not more than I respect myself." The days after that were rough. She called and texted constantly, swinging between apologizing and defending her actions, saying I was controlling or that I didn't understand her need to help people. It wore me down, but finally I just blocked her. I knew if I kept going back and forth, I'd end up sucked back in her mess. Once I had some distance, everything about our relationship started making more sense. I realized Mike's constant presence and her refusal to set boundaries were part of a pattern I'd ignored for way too long. This was never just about him needing a place to stay. It was about how she'd been pushing boundaries, disregarding my feelings, and acting like everything that was mine was hers. It all started small. She'd borrow things, hoodies, books, even my cologne. At first, I didn't care. But then, there was this week where I couldn't find my favorite leather jacket. I looked everywhere, only to see her posting pictures on Instagram wearing it. When I asked her about it, she brushed me off, saying, "It's just a jacket. Why are you so possessive?" That attitude was a pattern. She'd treat my stuff like community property, never asking, always just taking. It was like my things were just an extension of hers. After I left, she even messaged me, asking if Mike could borrow a few of my clothes, just temporarily. That's when I realized she never respected boundaries in the first place. Another thing was how she made her emotional demands on me, no matter what I had going on. If she needed me, it didn't matter if I was working or spending time with friends. I was supposed to drop everything. There was one night, my brother's birthday, and she called me out of nowhere, saying she was having a rough day and needed me right now. I explained that I was at a family event and would call her later, but she guilt me, saying I thought I was a priority. She acted distant for the rest of the week, and I felt like I was the one who'd done something wrong for not ditching my family to cater to her feelings. After our breakup, she kept trying to get me back into that same emotional cycle, calling and texting, wanting me to talk things through. I ignored her calls because I realized her need for support was just her way of keeping control over me. It wasn't that I didn't care about her struggles. I just knew my well-being had to come first this time. Then there was the time Mike tried to turn our place into his band's rehearsal spot. One night, he casually dropped that he'd been kicked out of his studio, throwing hints left and right about needing a place to test out some songs. Jenny was all for it, saying it would be great to help him out. I was blunt and said no. The last thing I needed was my house turning into a band's rehearsal space. Mike looked at me trying to guilt trip me with. Jenny said, "You were cool." I shut it down fast, saying, "This isn't about being cool, it's about boundaries." Jenny still tried to convince me, saying I was too uptight and didn't understand her desire to help others. But it was clear by then that she didn't care about respecting any boundary I put up, especially when it involved Mike. She twisted it into me being selfish and not supportive whenever I told her no, as if setting boundaries was some kind of moral failing on my part. It was like anything I said just bounced right off her. Mike, of course, stayed quiet in the background, soaking up all the sympathy, acting like I was the unreasonable one. So yeah, that last straw, the moment I walked in and saw him sitting on my couch, using my mug, acting like this was his place too, made everything fall into place for me. This wasn't about Jenny helping him. This was about her own self-righteous need to rescue people, even if it meant sacrificing our relationship and steamrolling over any sense of respect for me. And honestly, it made me wonder if she was keeping Mike around just to hold some kind of power over me, or maybe even over him. Packing up and walking out wasn't easy, but I knew I couldn't let her manipulate me into feeling like I was wrong for needing respect. I left for good this time, no plans to go back. She tried calling, tried to make it sound like I'd abandoned her over a little misunderstanding, but it was way past that. I was done being her doormat, done letting her turn my life into this soap opera of her exes and her emotional whims. It's been a few months now, and I haven't looked back. I realized I'd been blind to all the ways she'd ignored my boundaries and undermined my self-respect for her own convenience. I blocked her on everything, stopped checking mutual friends' feeds, and just focused on myself. My life's been a lot quieter, a lot less chaotic, and honestly, it's a relief. If I learned anything, it's that respect is non-negotiable. You can't build anything real with someone who won't respect your boundaries and expects you to sacrifice your dignity for their convenience. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.